Hello, everybody. My name is Bruce Montgomery, and this is my colleague, Tracy Priest.
Hello, everybody.
And we're with The Road to Retail. On our podcast, Tracy and I hope to offer tips, insights, ideas, and examples for how small, emerging, and challenger CPG, consumer packaged goods, brands can build their business. Everything from determining if you're ready to grow, where to start, how to prove it online, or how to go about securing distribution at a national retailer, driving your business through to the end consumer, or how to go about finding an investor if you're ready for that aspect. Bottom line is we would love to help you be successful by highlighting the many important aspects of this journey to establishing and growing your brand. Tracy and I have been doing this a long time. We've made a lot of mistakes, and we've done a few good things, so we're here to help you. Please follow our podcast on iTunes or Spotify, leave us a review, and consider sharing the show with a friend or colleague that may benefit from the content. Tracy?
Bruce and I have been involved in consumer packaged goods commercial operations roles for over 30 years. We define commercial operation functions relating to sales, marketing, trade marketing, broker and distributor management, agency selection and management, new product development, brand acquisition and divestitures, and customer management. We also invite on our episodes friends and former colleagues from all aspects of the Road to Retail process to come on the show and offer their opinions and experience. Again, we encourage you to subscribe to our iTunes or Spotify channel at Road, 2 Retail.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our most recent episode of Road to Retail. So, Bruce, welcome. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Tracy, as always.
So tell us who we have today on our show.
Today we're very fortunate to get to spend some time with Skye Frontier, the Executive Vice President of Incremental. And Skye's going to tell you what they really do, but I can tell you what they've done for us in past. These guys are excellent at measuring the impact of your spend with these retailer media networks, which are becoming more and more a part of what people want money being spent on to drive business. So Skye, welcome to the show and thank you for your time.
Tracy, Bruce, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
So let's dive right in. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about Incremental? Well, let's start with you. Tell a little bit about your background, how you ended up at Incremental, and then what Incremental does, because I'm sure I butchered it.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it. So but a bit about myself. So my entire career, for the most part, has been in marketing analytics and brand strategy. So I started 15, 16 years ago at Comscore. If you don't know Comscore, they're sort of like the Nielsen of the internet, right? Trying to measure audiences' viewership across devices. I remember doing some of the first like cross-device studies. Like if you're shown an ad on an iPad and you buy it on an iPhone, what does that look like? After that, I spent a couple of years at Newstarts, where I met Dave Pollitt, who's our CEO here at Incremental, working on a whole slew of measurement tools. I'll spare you guys the long list of 3-letter acronyms. And then spent about half a decade in brand strategy consulting. So working with everyone from large global CPGs to smaller kind of upstart challenger brands to help them with their brand positioning and strategy. And then the last 2 years have been here at Incremental, sort of like bringing that kind of full circle, taking the background and brand strategy and working with CPGs and measurement and folding it into the rapidly growing retail media space.
Right. Awesome. So what's a little bit, go just a touch deeper before we kick it to Tracy about Incremental and what you guys do.
Sure. So the problem Incremental is solving for is perhaps the original problem of advertising and marketing. I think everyone cites John Wanamaker sort of famously saying, the problem with advertising is 50% of waste. I just don't know which half I'm wasting. And we're trying to solve the modern day equivalent of that, right? So the consumer's journey isn't linear. I might see an ad on Google, I might see an ad on Facebook, and then I click on an ad on Amazon and it's also on sale. And how do I untangle what I'm doing that's actually working from what I'm doing that's not working, right? And we're using, machine learning among a bunch of other techniques to understand what is that relationship between your advertising efforts and the sales of your business. And then using that understanding, to your point, to help guide decisions around, how do I get more of my advertising investments? How do I better plan them to hit sales goals or profit goals or whatever it might be? So, again, at its core, what we're trying to develop a stronger connection between is your advertising efforts online or with retail media networks, and the sales and sort of financials of your business.
So, Skye,
Thanks.
talk to us a little bit about how that, first for our small emerging brand audience, how that ties into, growth and then the impact of their spend.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm sure as a lot of these brands are seeing a larger and larger proportion of their advertising is tied up with retail media networks, right? And what we're trying to do is basically make those investments go further. So I think, as a lot of people probably have come to appreciate, not all of these investments are flexible.
Good.
Good. I'll say flexible, right?
Okay.
A lot of cases to maintain or gain that distribution, you probably do have to invest through that partnership as well. And what we're trying to do is help those brands that are making those investments get as much out of those investments as possible, right? If you have to play the game, you might as well play to win the game, right?
Right. Okay, good.
So Skye, let's go a little deeper there. So
Yeah.
with all this attention, like you just touched on, of the retailer media networks, tell the folks listening what these are and how they work.
Yeah, so they sound complicated, right? The sort of mysterious, what is a retail media network? At its core, it's really about two things, right? One is retailers collecting first party or 1P data, if you've heard that sort of expression. And really what that is everything from like what you search on Amazon to what you buy in a Walmart. So think of your behavior as a shopper with respect to that retailer. It's them collecting that data for advertising purposes, and then two, creating new advertising opportunities. So I think all of us as consumers interact with this constantly. If you go to walmart.com or Amazon or bestbuy.com, a huge portion of those search results are paid, right? It's these retailers creating these sort of unique opportunities to insert advertising into the user experience. So, generally speaking, when people are talking about retail media networks or retail media, they're generally talking about these two things, right? Retailers collecting data on consumer behavior for advertising purposes, and then creating these sort of unique, often digital experiences that are now advertising driven as well.
So Skye, before we kick it to Tracy, for the folks, give a couple of examples of the names of some of these retailer media networks, like Walmart's and CVS, just to frame it up.
Yeah, so like the big two or three. So Amazon ads, if you've interacted with it, Walmart Connect, right on the Walmart side, Target Rondell, if you've heard that before, Kroger 8451, right, is their retail media network or their performance media side. So most of these large retailers have spun up kind of sister or parallel organizations focused on this opportunity of retail media.
Oh, thanks. That's helpful. Tracy?
Very perfect. So tell us why these RMNs or retail media networks are important to the retailer.
Yeah. So for retailers, it's pretty straightforward. It's a high growth, high margin, new revenue stream, right? What's there not to like from a retailer perspective? So, you guys have lived in this space. Retail margins are what? Sub 10%, 15% maybe on a good day?
On a good day. Yeah, on a good day.
Media margins are 70, 80%.
Yeah. There you go.
For every dollar of advertising revenue, you're making 7-8x the cash you'd make on a retail sale. That's an attractive opportunity. So I think, 10 years ago, everyone kind of cites Amazon as like the big first mover in the space. Their ad revenue has surpassed their e-commerce revenue. So they're making more money off of advertising than selling the goods that you advertise around. So every other retailer looked at that and went, wow, that's pretty attractive. How do I get my slice of that growing pie? And that's how we ended up with really the flood of retail media networks launching over the last 4, 5, 6 years. So that the value to retailers, I think, is financial, right? There's huge potential profitable revenue streams for them. But there is value to the brands. I've spent the last 15, 20 years in marketing analytics, and what retail media networks are offering to advertisers actually is relatively unique, right? The ability to use what you've purchased and what you're searching for is some of the most powerful signals you could use to direct advertising. And if you pair that with the ability to deliver it when someone's actually searching for that product or that category, it should be a really powerful opportunity for advertisers as well, right?
Yeah, so that's interesting, Skye. I mean, Tracy and I have been involved with some brands that we've worked with and helped that had as an ante that you to get distribution at XYZ retailer, you had to make a quote unquote commitment investment onto the retailer media network. And, how should these smaller brands think about incorporating this into their demand plan or marketing plan? And yes, the point you just made, some of it's not negotiable. You want to be in here, you're going to do this for the reasons you just cited. I mean, who doesn't want high growth, high margin? I mean, sign me up for that
Right.
all day long. But I think if you could give some counsel as to how a smaller brand that's not J&J or Coca-Cola, if they really want to be in, let's just pick Kroger. If they want to be in Kroger, how do you participate and walk into this without risking too much of your budget committed? And then even if they're working with you guys, you just can't fine tune it fast enough.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you nailed the first part, which is to look at it as, part of that overall partnership you have with that retailer. So, if you do have to invest or sort of pay the ante to secure the distribution, really start taking a step back and look at it as an overall value of the partnership. And what I mean by that is, if you're going to be making those investments, how can you structure that relationship in a way that gives you greater flexibility to decide how those investments get made? So, one of the oftentimes the recommendations I'll make to serve smaller challenger brands is if you've got the ability for your team to actually manage that spend directly and not outsource it as a managed service run by the retailer or some external team, actually run the campaigns yourself, even if it's only for a few months. So you develop the language, the motion, the understanding of what's available and how it works. So you at least have fluency in those conversations as you go back and say, hey, look, we've committed to spend $100,000 with you. We think this ad isn't working, but these ads are working. And we think we'll still invest $100,000. We'd like to negotiate moving those dollars from this type of media to that type of media.
Sorry, Skye, let's back that up 1 second, just so that the folks are clear.
Yeah.
A smaller brand with these retailers, and I'm just using Kroger because it's on my mind. Are the retailers generally open for that kind of back and forth, or is it like, look, you have option A, B, and C, pick one because I gotta go?
Yeah.
Is it a negotiation and a partnership, or is it kind of like, look, we want you to participate. For a brand your size, usually option A works best. Sign here because I have 4 other meetings.
Yeah. So the investment is often not a negotiation. It's you're going to invest with the retailer.
That part, I think we understand. You made that clear. But in terms of how you allocate it, the ability to change.
Yeah. So some retailers have so there's generally speaking self-service retail media networks where you've got the ability to actually service and manage how that media is executed through the retail media network. And there are others that offer basically a managed service. You hand over effectively trade dollars to them, and they spend those dollars on sort of their side of the fence. What I was trying to point to is where you can take ownership of how those dollars are actually executed, try to, right?
Okay.
It's not always available in every case. In a lot of cases, you won't necessarily have that control. But if and where you can, running it yourself, I think at the very least is an important learning experience as a brand to give you the language to then, as you go to negotiate in the future, you've got the ability to kind of go toe to toe.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, so that was great, Skye. So tell us a little bit about how Incremental helps a brand evaluate, allocate, and also maybe redeploy those, ad spend dollars.
Yeah. Absolutely. So a couple things just to kind of lay out definitions on, right? So anyone that's invested with a retail media network is probably familiar with two terms, ad attributed sales and ROAS, or return on ad spend. And those are typically the performance reporting metrics that you'll get back from an RMN. So ad attributed sales typically are, uh, you know, basically how many dollars of revenue have been touched by advertising. So if I've touched the consumer and they've purchased within a set window of time, that's ad attributed sales. And then ROAS is just that ad attributed sales revenue number over how much I've invested in advertising. So if I spent, I'm making it up round numbers, $50,000 on advertising, the ad attributed sales for that is $100,000. My ROAS is two, right? 100,000 over 50. So those are two terms you're going to see everywhere across retail media networks. And what we're trying to do is go a step beyond ad attributed sales. And what I mean by that is ad attributed sales doesn't necessarily mean the sale was caused by advertising, which sounds slightly counterintuitive, but let's do a really simple, like brick and mortar example. If I'm grocery shopping yesterday, Sunday, and I've already got milk in my carton, milk in my cart, I go to checkout, and the cashier hands me a coupon for milk. Did that coupon cause me to buy the milk? No, I already had it in my cart. I was already going to buy it anyway. I buy the same almond milk every week, no matter what's on sale, what's not on sale, no matter what ads I see. What we're trying to actually get to is not just did you expose someone who happened to convert by coincidence or by some other reason, but did that ad actually cause them to buy something they otherwise would not have bought in the first place?
Right. Okay.
So it's a much stronger relationship that we're really after. And that notion of did the ad cause the sale to happen is typically called incrementality. It's the sort of inspiration for the name of our company, right? What we're really after is understanding incremental growth, right? Growth that you could have only achieved through advertising. So, at the end of the day, when we talk about helping brands, plan or allocate or optimize, what we're really trying to understand is that relationship between your investments and incremental growth, and how to allocate your investments to drive as much incremental growth as possible. I'll sort of pause there for a second. Hopefully that wasn't too technical in the weeds.
No, that was good.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tracy, go ahead.
No, I said that was a perfect explanation, I thought. Bruce, you had a question on that?
Yeah, the thing that strikes me, and we've had this discussion with other guests and then with the brands that we work with, is the whole period for attribution, and it seems to be a bit of a moving target because I'll use my mother. If my mother's in Florida and she, shops at Publix, but she looked for something online like a week ago, if she was going to get it, I mean, how does someone, and I'm not challenging you, I'm challenging me as a brand guy. I'm like, how does Publix tell me that ad my mother saw 2 weeks ago is what drove her to do this?
Right.
I mean, there's a chance it planted a seed and was helpful. There's also the chance that she might have viewed 70 items and, bought one.
Yeah.
And then saying that I can understand attribution for a fairly short window. And you might say, Bruce, you're crazy. You wouldn't be the first person, like 7 days and less.
Yeah.
I can buy that. But, if someone's telling me that there's a 30-day attribution window, maybe if it's a high ticket item like buying a car, sure, that's something you're going to think about and really evaluate. But to use your almond milk example, no matter how good it tastes, if I'm thinking about it, I'm probably buying it,
Yeah.
soon.
You mentioned a bunch of really important things to unpack there. So ad attributed sales always has with it an attribution window. So how long before the sale does that ad exposure have to be for it to count as attributed?
And are those pretty consistent across RMN, Skye, or are they all over the place?
They tend to be, there's tends to be a 7, a 14-day, or a 30-day.
Okay.
And they're somewhat consistent. 7 and 14 are pretty common. For some, you'll see 30. My recommendation is kind of to your point. Generally speaking, I prefer to look at the most conservative or the most restrictive, which is 7-day. The
Hmm.
one exception is actually you pointed to it for really long consideration categories like electronics, for example, where I'm not on an impulse going to go out and buy a $1,000, $2,000 TV. There's going to be a little bit of research along the way.
Right.
Then I might want to look at a 14-day or a 30-day window. But if it's for most consumables, I think you can probably err on the shorter side.
Yeah, I think that that's really helpful. And when a retailer tells you what their attribution window is that one of the things a firm like yours can help negotiate, or is that pretty set? It's like, look, Bruce, I don't care what you think. It's 14 days, buddy.
Yeah. So some retailers allow you to look at it through different lenses. Some have fixed ones. One of the
Hmm.
things we do is basically throw the window out. We say, hey, why are you artificially saying it has to happen within 7 days? It has to happen within 14 days. What we're actually trying to figure out is when is the peak sort of lagged effect, right? Like for some categories, it might only be within a day or two. For some categories, it might be within 5 minutes. Like if the sale happens within 5 minutes, there's an impact. If it happens 4 or 5 days later, there's the ad's forgotten. It has no impact whatsoever. So instead of trying to force attribution to these predefined windows, like one size fits all, what we're actually trying to figure out is like, what is the effective window for advertising? Is it really a day? Is it really 4 or 5 days? And again, that's where, the type of advertising, the type of category you're in, all will sort of affect what is that sort of optimal window and what that looks like.
Yeah, I think all these are really, I mean, high level thinking, right? Because this is where a lot of money's being steered. Point of sale, even from way back, there was a P&G paper a long time ago, and it was called Winning the Last 3 feet. So when the person's standing in the aisle, how do
Yeah.
you get them to extend their arm and put one product in the cart over another? Well, this kind of leads right into the next topic here. So let's go a little bit deeper on how does Incremental evaluate the brand's investment, and then as a client, how do you report it back to me, and what's the frequency of our ability to make changes? I hate the word cadence, but it works here. Is
Yeah.
the cadence like to talk every once a week, every day?
Yeah.
How does it work if I'm an Incremental client?
Sure. So let me talk a bit about sort of the framework we use, and I'll talk about the kind of cadence of what does that look like, day to day, week to week. So the lens we're helping introduce to brands, again, is this lens of incrementality. Again, at the most simple level you can think of, if I invest $1 in advertising today, how many dollars of top line revenue growth am I getting back as a business?
Mm-hmm.
That clear understanding, it allows you to do three things. One is from a measurement standpoint. You've now got a really, really clear connection between your sales or marketing and your CFO and finance, right? You can basically begin to easily translate what you're doing on the marketing side directly into impacts on the financial side. So for heads of sales or heads of marketing that are often in, I'll say, friction
A
relationships with
nice way to put it.
their, yeah, this can help resolve some of that because you can begin to talk about in the same language. If you give me $1 CFO and I invest in advertising, I expect to deliver back to the business $2 or $3 of truly unique or incremental top line revenue growth on that side. So from a measure perspective, it allows you to begin to bridge that gap between marketing and finance, however you want to frame it. The other two use cases that we typically work on are what we call sort of planning. So you can use that understanding to come up with hypotheticals, right?
Right.
Hey, my sales goal went from 20 to 30 million in revenue. Well, how much would I need to invest in where to feel confident about hitting that sales goal? And then the last piece is a bit more tactical for those sort of hands-on keyboard actually executing the media. It's optimization, right? So if I'm running 50, 60, 70, 100 different campaigns, how do I tweak those campaigns to make them work harder, right? I'm still investing the same amount of money. I'm still putting in, I don't know, 50, $100,000, but I'm now able to get back more because I've removed the inefficient campaigns and I'm putting more investment behind the ones that actually are working really effectively. So that lens of incrementality across, measurement, optimization, and planning tends to be how we help brands kind of evaluate and plan their investments.
Got it.
And then you asked about cadence.
Mhm.
And Bruce, we've talked about sort of past experiences with, market mix modeling and that type of research. That's not us. I've spent too much of my career, 100-page PowerPoints, brands paying millions of dollars for it, and you're giving them results 6 months after the campaign finished, right? That's not what we wanted to do with Incremental. So our cadence, the platform itself actually refreshes every single day. So you don't have to wait until the campaign finishes. You don't have to wait 2 months afterwards to see the results. We want to be able to deliver them while that media is still being spent so you can course correct on the fly.
Right.
So our cadence or how we work with brands tends to operate sort of on two paths. One is whether you have a team in-house that's running media, maybe an agency partner that's running the media. Week to week, we tend to work with them with that sort of tactical optimization. Hey, these campaigns aren't driving incremental growth of the business. These are. Maybe let's move those dollars from the ones that aren't to the ones that are. And then, quarterly or semi-annually, when you're talking about sort of annual planning and sort of channel allocation, we tend to work with a slightly broader group to help them come up with those plans, right? To use the platform and the model to say, hey, look, as you begin to look at, your sales goal for next year and what your investment plan might look like, we think using this understanding, these are the right investments to make. These are the ones that will get you your goal, and so forth.
Awesome.
No,
That's
thank you.
great. So let's talk about budgets. So how does Incremental help a brand, stay on budget, allocate their budget, and then most importantly, tell our audience a little bit about what happens when, a brand makes a financial commitment, let's, say $50,000, and there isn't really a return on that investment. So obviously you can't take that money back from the retailer. It's already spent. So tell us a little bit about how that works.
Yeah. So, in a perfect world rather, all your advertising dollars are fluid and flexible. If something isn't working, you can take those dollars away and reallocate them somewhere else. Unfortunately, the world we're talking about is heavily constrained, right?
Right. Yeah.
Usually not just one of those commitments, there's multiple of those commitments that you're juggling right across numerous retailer relationships. So, one of the things we had to learn really, really early on is, there's a difference between the, blue sky optimal budget and the, reality of a very, very constrained budget. So, oftentimes when we're working with brands, it's not so much, all right, where would I put that dollar? It's, hey, this dollar has to stay within this bucket of my relationship, my trade spend, whatever it might be. Help me within this very constrained world, make it go as far as it can, right? So, some of the stuff we were talking about earlier on around, trying to take control of some of those investments with retailers so that, you're still investing the same dollars, but you now have control over, is it campaign A or campaign B or ad one or ad two, is important because at least gives you the flexibility within that constrained budget to try to make it go potentially further. So again, a lot of what we're doing is trying, for some brands, they've got more flexibility than others. But for most of them, when we talk about sort of planning and budgeting, it's often kind of ground up, working within these sort of constrained silos. How do we make those dollars work as hard as they can? And then where there is sort of flexible dollars above them, helping them allocate them across, the various advertising channels.
Yeah, I think Tracy and I have seen, we have a lot of experience that retailers are glad to take incremental dollars. It's a little bit harder to take the money away from them when you say that it's not working. So
exactly,
it's great that you guys are so finite that you can work within the tight buckets because, again, I got Kroger on my mind today. But if I have to spend Tracy's number, $50,000 with Kroger, if the first couple of things aren't like really cooking, having a service like yours to say, hey, Skye, I got to spend this money. I'd rather not keep lighting it on fire. What are you guys seeing where we could, speak with our retailer partner and then redeploy it over here?
Yeah. And we also see the positive, which is when it works, brands are way more willing to invest incremental dollars.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we touched on this a little bit. So let's say I'm an incremental client. What kind of reporting back to me will I get? I mean, I realize in this day and age that, there's a portal or something where you can go in and see what's going on. But, how do you guys like to work back? Do you guys send out some AI generated, one pager every Tuesday, or do you prefer a weekly call? Or is it like, hey, Bruce, go in the portal, drive around and, see what you see? And, again, I've seen portals that I've had access to that if you're not Elon Musk, good luck figuring out what's going on in there.
Well, we've tried to make it as user friendly as we can, but there are basically three modes of how we interact with brands. Some folks are super self-sufficient. They've got tight schedules. They just want this delivered to their inbox every morning. So we actually have a daily email that goes out that basically says, hey, when we look back at the last 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, this is the universe of investments you've made. This is how they're contributing or not contributing to the growth of your business, and flagging, hey, these are a few that you might want to take a closer look at, right? We've got the platform itself entirely flexible. You can build your own complex simulations, budget allocations. You can work with our team to help build those simulations together and kind of war game them out together. So there's, again, kind of a plethora of ways that we end up engaging with brands, whether it's through our team kind of helping you build those plans, come up with those allocations, kind of like sounding board, sense check them. What else have you seen? How else people are approaching this? To, hey, look, I'm running around, my hair's on fire. I just need this delivered every morning so I can quickly take a check. Yep, it's working. We're good. Let's keep going. Right.
Awesome.
That's helpful.
So,
Tracy?
yeah. So talk to us a little bit about how Incremental gets paid.
Yeah. So that there's pretty straightforward, actually. So we're a software platform at the end. Our pricing is built upon scale and complexity. And what that means, if you're a small or emerging brand that actually has a fairly uncomplex or simple, portfolio of investments, it's actually quite cost effective to get started. So we've tried to design this in a way that, for those brands that are kind of just dipping their toe into some of these investments with retail media networks, we want to make sure the platform can actually deliver value to them. This is, at the end of it, a strong measurement is just as valuable to smaller brands as it is bigger brands. If anything, they've got a risk,
Yeah.
right? They can't waste these dollars and, make it up next year. So we've really tried to build, our own service model, our own platform, and our own pricing to make sure that, even smaller challenger brands can benefit from stronger measurement.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So let's roll into our fun questions. So I get the first one. So tell us, our audience, about who's had the greatest influence on your career.
Yeah. So I don't know if they're the most influential, but the last 2 years working with Dave Pollitt, who's our CEO, I've worked with in the past, and then Jesse Lycan, who's our co-founder, who runs the sort of tech and products of the house, have been extremely rewarding. I know, Bruce, you've met Dave before. I think you've met Jesse as well.
Yeah.
Jesse's one of the sharpest tech founders I've ever met. Dave is one of the most incredible commercial leaders I've ever met. And being able to, kind of the three of us, debate out things, work through it together, collaborate. It's been a ton of fun the last 2 years building this together.
Well, you guys have certainly done a nice job as we've been tracking you over these last couple of years. So well done by the whole team there. All right, Skye, this might be the most important question of the day. Who is your favorite band and why?
So I'm a big classic rock guy. So if I had to listen to one band the rest of my life, it would probably be Led Zeppelin.
I knew I liked you.
I know.
I knew it.
I know. As a kid growing up, I either wanted to be able to play the guitar like Page or sing like Plant. Clearly, neither of those have come to fruition, but they still hold a special place in my heart.
Yeah, but Jimmy Page can't optimize ad spend with Walmart Connect. So you got that on him.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right. Well, Skye, hey, thank you so much for your time. This has been great. So
Yes.
let's go one other thing. How can people reach out and get in touch with you to learn more about Incremental and your services?
Yeah, so incremental.com company. You can find me on LinkedIn. Skye Frontier is a pretty easy to Google name. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll take you there. Tracy, the big finish.
Absolutely. Well, Skye, this has been great. I know our small emerging brand audience is going to love listening to this. And we just encourage our audience to follow us on our Apple podcast or Spotify and also on LinkedIn. And look for this episode to post in the very near future. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. And thank you, Skye. Great, great talking to you today.
Good luck out there, folks.
Thanks.